So today I want to read to you a letter from Dr. Jung, but I want to explain a little bit about the context of this letter, because I want to show you how depressed Dr. Jung was in 1945 when he wrote this letter, in February of 45. So it was at the height of World War II, just after the Battle of the Bulge in Germany. And so this is a letter to Dr. Kristine Mann, who he has learned is dying. And in order to put this into context, I want to provide you with a little bit of Dr. Mann's background. Dr. Mann was a medical doctor, and she was busy with women's health at the end of the 19th century. And then she went and she taught at Vassar College for a period of time, and there she taught English. I'm not terribly sure about what the order of these things are, but in any case, I want to read the section of her description in the Wikipedia article, which describes her relationship with two other Jungian analysts and with Eleanor Bertin. And so here's the Wikipedia piece. At Vassar College, Mann developed lifelong friendships with three of her students, Carrie Fink, Elizabeth Goodrich, and Eleanor Bertin, and Eleanor Bertin, who, like Mann, all played major roles in the early history of analytical psychology. In 1920, Bertin traveled to London, England, to begin analysis with Constance Long, the first British psychoanalyst to follow Jung's methods. Long had studied with Jung at his home in Küsnacht, and this encounter led Mann and Bertin to travel to Zurich in 1921-1922. They then returned to New York, where they established their own practices, becoming the second and third Jungians to treat patients in the United States. They became staunch allies of Jung and regularly traveled to Europe to attend his lectures and to continue their analysis with him. A small, determined band of Jungians emerged in New York, and in 1924, Mary Esther Harding, a distinguished disciple of Jung, emigrated from England to join them. Beginning around 1918, Jung wrote that Christianity had suppressed the animal element in the human psyche, and as a result, when it broke out, it was uncontrolled and unregulated. This inevitably led to catastrophes, such as with World War I. In 1923, after his interactions with Mann, Jung spoke of the historical effects of ecclesiastical Christianity upon the unconscious mind. Jung's critique of Christianity was now limited to ecclesiastical Christianity, which he now approached with greater scrutiny. Mann, Harding, and Bertin spent summers at Mann's ancestral summer community at Bailey Island, Maine, where they established their practices in the summer and saw patients from all parts of the United States. In 1936, Jung traveled to Bailey Island to present his Bailey Island seminar, the first of his two-part American seminar, Dream Symbols. The second part, known as his New York seminar, was held in New York 1 year later. The dreamer in this seminar has been identified as the prominent physicist Wolfgang Pauli. and the seminars were published in volume 12 of Jung's Collected Works as Individual Dream Symbolism in Relation to Alchemy. The three women doctors created a powerful trio, and in 1936 they created the Analytical Psychology Club of New York and actively led the educational programs there. At her death in 1945, Mann left her personal library to the club, the beginning of the Kristine Mann library that is now the most extensive collection of analytical psychology in the world. Okay, so that's the background a bit. Now, also, in terms of understanding Dr. Jung's state of mind when he wrote this letter, he had seen, obviously, all the destruction of World War I at close hand. He was a Swiss, and he lived in Switzerland, which was neutral in both World War I and World War II. But obviously, these catastrophes were happening all around him. And he saw the rise of Hitler, and he saw the Great Depression as it affected much of the world. And then beginning on September 1st, 1939, Adolf Hitler began World War II. So this letter is being written by Dr. Jung on the 1st of February, 1945, on news that Dr. Mann was dying. She died of cancer in 1945. And so he wrote her this letter, which I'm going to share with you now. Okay, this letter is from C.G. Jung Letters, Volume 1, pages 357 and 358. My dear Dr. Mann, Eleanor Bertine has already given me the news of your illness in a letter I received a few days ago. One other point to make here is that this is still while World War II is going on in earnest. It's about 1 month after, a little bit more than a month after the Battle of the Bulge in Germany. And Dr. Jung has been essentially cut off from all of his close disciples for quite a long time. So let me begin again. My dear Dr. Mann, 1 February 1945. Eleanor Bertine has already given me the news of your illness in a letter I received a few days ago. I wish I could talk to you personally. But one is so far. From each other, and it is such a long time we are separated from the rest of the world that one feels quite hopeless about a communication. We don't trust even our letters to be capable of jumping over the abyss which yawns between us and the wild world. We don't trust even our letters to be capable of jumping over the abyss which yawns between us and the wide world. Still, I hope that a good star conveys my letter. To you. As you know, the angel of death has struck me down too, and almost succeeded in wiping me off the slate. This is a reference to Dr. Jung's own heart attack in 1944. I have been practically an invalid ever since, recovering very, very slowly from all the arrows that have pierced me on all sides. Fortunately enough, my head has not suffered, and I could forget myself in my scientific work. On the whole, my illness proved to be a most valuable experience, which gave me the inestimable opportunity of a glimpse behind the veil. The only difficulty is to get rid of the body, to get quite naked and void of the world and the ego will. When you can give up the crazy will to live, and when you seemingly fall into a bottomless mist, then the truly real life begins with everything which you were meant to be and never reached. It is something ineffably grand. I was free, completely free and whole, as I never felt before. I found myself 15,000 kilometers from the earth, and I saw it as an immense globe resplendent in an inexpressibly beautiful blue light. I was on a point exactly above the southern end of India, which shone in a bluish silvery light, with Ceylon still a shimmering opal in the deep blue sea. I was in the universe where there was a big solitary rock containing a temple. I saw its entrance illuminated by 1,000 small flames of coconut oil. I knew I was to enter the temple, and I would reach full knowledge. But at this moment, a messenger from the world, which by then was a very insignificant corner of the universe, arrived and said that I was not allowed to depart, and at this moment the whole vision collapsed completely. But from then on, for 3 weeks, I slept and was wakeful each night in the universe and experienced the complete vision. Not I was united with somebody or something, it was united. It was the Hieros Gamos, the mystic Agnes. It was a silent, invisible festival. It was a silent, invisible festival permeated by an incomparable, indescribable feeling of eternal bliss, such as I never could have imagined as being within the reach of human experience. Death is the hardest thing from the outside, and as long as we are outside of it. But once inside, you taste of such completeness and peace and fulfillment that you don't want to return. As a matter of fact, during the first month after my first vision, I suffered from black depressions because I felt I was recovering. It was like dying. I did not want to live and to return into this fragmentary, restricted, narrow, almost mechanical life where you were subject to the laws of gravity, and cohesion, imprisoned in a system of dimensions and whirled along with other bodies in the turbulent stream of time. There was fullness and meaning. There was fullness, meaning fulfillment, eternal movement, not movement in time. Although your letter is dated November 27, 1944, I hope that my answer will reach you. Your letter arrived today, and I am writing at once. Throughout my illness, something has carried me. My feet were not standing on air, and I had the proof that I have reached a safe ground. Whatever you do, if you do it sincerely, will eventually become the bridge to your wholeness, a good ship that carries you through the darkness of your second birth, which seems to be death to the outside. I will not last too long anymore. I am marked. But life has fortunately become provisional. It has become a transitory prejudice, a working hypothesis for the time being, but not existence itself. Be patient and regard it as another difficult task, this time the last one. I greet you. Carl G. Jung. It's interesting that most of Dr. Jung's letters he signs C.G. Jung, but this one he signs Carl G. Jung. Now, I mentioned in the title of this the morning after, and I want to refer now to a few things that relate to pain and to maybe to depression. Obviously, Dr. Jung was very depressed at the time he was writing that letter, and toward the latter days of World War II, which had been horrific in Europe. And so I want to read this excerpt from Dr. Edward Ettinger's book, Encounter with the Self, and it refers to the fact that we can only learn and come to something new through pain. And I wanted to mention that after this letter that Dr. Jung wrote, he lived another, let me get these things off the screen. After this letter that Dr. Jung had written, he lived another 15 and a half years. And several of his most important works were written after this letter and after this very long struggle that he had gone through. And so the first of those is Ion, Researches into the Phenomenology of the Self, which was published in 1951. Answer to Job, which was published in 1952. And Mysterium Conjunctionis, which was published in 1955-56. So all of those major works, so all of his major works on religion, essentially, well, let's say he wrote a lot about religion, but these were the culminating works on religion, let's say. So all of those came after this very trying time that Dr. Jung had been through. And so one of the things that seems important in Jungian work is to understand that we only learn things through pain. And I want to first read this section of Dr. Ettinger's book, Encounter with the Self. And this is a piece that was written by one of his anonymous patients, and it's called Going to School to Pain. Pain says, if one would teach, he must first get the student's attention. I am an excellent attention getter. I am deep. If you would not fear me, be deep like me. I come from the center. A point is my sign. A stab from me is the cosmic goad. If you would not fear me, live each present moment with the same intensity that you experience me. I am the great purifier. Only the essential can endure me. All else is burnt away. I am the great valuer. All values come from me and my partner, death. I am the gateway to the mysteries. An image of me is your highest concept of the sacred. I am the quintessential now. I lie in ambush for those who would miss their daily dose of life. This elixir, unconsumed, accumulates and overspills its little vial, raining its concentrated torrent on the negligent soul. I am the angel of annunciation for the awesome now. Time is a gliding serpent, bearing precious jewels upon its back, each jewel a present moment. And that's from here's the credit for that. These words formed themselves within a patient of Dr. Edward Ettinger in the aftermath of an experience of intense pain. And it's found in Encounter with the Self by Edward Ettinger, published by Inner City Books, A Labor of Love of Dr. Darrell Sharp, page 32. And so by pain, we sometimes mean a loss or a defeat of some kind. And Dr. James Hillman once quipped, can't we find a defeat in here somewhere? Because what he meant by that is that it's only in defeat that we learn things. And so I was going back to, I just happened to be also going through the Bible today, and I found a couple of things that are relevant to this issue of pain. Today I'm reading from the New American Bible. This is a Bible that's used in the Catholic Church, and this particular book, which is the Wisdom of Ben Sira 2, or the Wisdom of Ben Sira, or Ecclesiasticus, does not appear apparently in Protestant Bibles. And I just checked my King James Version, and sure enough, it's not there. So, but let me read these short verses to you because they're relevant to this. One is, so I'm reading from the book Wisdom of Ben Sira from Ecclesiastic, and it's also called Ecclesiasticus, and chapter 2. Trust in God. Now, as you listen to this, think in terms of God being the self, the God image, as Dr. Jung speaks of it. So imagine this as your own God image. And so when the Lord is referred to here, what is referred to is the God image that is within you, the self. My child, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for trials. Be sincere of heart and steadfast, and do not be impetuous in time of adversity. Cling to him, do not leave him, that you may prosper in your last days. Accept whatever happens to you in periods of humiliation. Be patient. For in fire gold is tested, and the chosen in the crucible of humiliation. Trust in God, and he will help you. Make your ways straight and hope in him. You that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy. Do not stray, lest you fall. You that fear the Lord, trust in him, and your reward will not be lost. You that fear the Lord, hope for good things, for lasting joy and mercy. For the Lord is compassionate and merciful, forgives sins, and saves in time of trouble. Okay, so that's one passage, but it's really referring to how the self comes to us in our times of trouble, in our painful times. And then I wanted to read a little bit further in chapter 4 of Ecclesiasticus, and I'm reading verses 11 just a minute. Now, I'm reading The Rewards of Wisdom, which might be useful for certain people in our political environment to hear. And wisdom is also referred to in Proverbs as Sophia. And but here, and think also of this method of learning that we have, which is pain itself. And so anyway, the rewards of wisdom, verse 11. Wisdom teaches her children and admonishes all who can understand her. Those who love her love life. Those who seek her out win the Lord's favor. Those who hold her fast will attain glory, and they shall abide in the blessing of the Lord. Those who serve her serve the Holy One. Those who love her, the Lord loves. Whoever obeys me will judge nations. Whoever listens to me will dwell in my inmost chambers. If they remain faithful, they will possess me. Their descendants, too, will inherit me. I will walk with them in disguise, and at first I will test them with trials. Fear and dread I will bring upon them, and I will discipline them with my constraints. When their hearts are fully with me, then I will set them again on the straight path and reveal my secrets to them. But if they turn away from me, I will abandon them and deliver them over to robbers. Another subtitle now, Sincerity and Justice. So I'm in chapter 4, verse 20. My son, watch for the right time. Fear what is evil. Do not bring shame upon yourself. There is a shame heavy with guilt, and a shame that brings glory and respect. Show no favoritism to your own discredit. Let no one intimidate you to your own downfall. Do not refrain from speaking at the proper time, and do not hide your wisdom. For wisdom becomes known through speech, and knowledge through the tongue's response. Never speak against the truth, but of your own ignorance be ashamed. Do not be ashamed to acknowledge your sins, and do not struggle against a rushing stream. Do not abase yourself before a fool. Do not refuse to do so before rulers. Even to the death, fight for what is right, and the Lord will do battle for you. Do not be haughty in your speech, or lazy and slack in your deeds. Do not be like a lion at home, or sly and suspicious with your servants. Do not let your hand be open to receive, but clenched when it is time to give. Chapter 5, Against Presumption. Do not rely on your wealth, or say, I have the power. Do not rely on your strength in following the desires of your heart. Do not say, who can prevail against me? For the Lord will exact punishment. Do not say, I have sinned, yet what has happened to me? For the Lord is slow to hand. Do not say, I have sinned, yet what has happened to me? For the Lord is slow to anger. Do not be so confident of forgiveness that you add sins upon sin. Do not say, his mercy is great, my many sins he will forgive. For mercy and anger alike are with him. His wrath comes to rest on the wicked. Do not delay turning back to the Lord. Do not put it off day after day, for suddenly his wrath will come forth. At the time of vengeance you will perish. Do not rely on deceitful wealth, for it will be of no help on the day of wrath. Use and abuse of the tongue. This is from chapter 5, starting with verse 9. Do not winnow in every wind, nor walk in every path. Be steadfast regarding your knowledge, and let your speech be consistent. Be swift to hear, but slow to answer. If you can, answer your neighbor. If not, place your hand over your mouth. Honor and dishonor through speaking. The tongue can be your downfall. Do not be called double-tongued, and with your tongue do not slander a neighbor. For shame has been created for the thief, and sore disgrace for the double-tongued. In little or in much, do not act corruptly. Okay, I think you get the gist of it. So that's, in Buddhism, there's a idea of what goes around comes around, which is karma. And basically, I think this is what this book of Ecclesiastes, this book of Ecclesiastes Ecclesiasticus is basically saying the same thing, just to say. Now I'll look over at some of your comments here. Reality Files says, love Carl Jung, thank you so much for giving him voice and promoting such profound work. Grenade says, amazing letter, I can relate. Reality Files, I'd love to chat collab on Carl Jung with you. I don't know what that next thing is, IMK. If you want to do a show together at Demetrius Reality Files, okay, right, I guess that means to write an email to you, and I will do that. I would love to have a conversation with you. I think I have your email address correct here as demetriusrealityfiles@gmail. And so Harry Putters says, great read. Grenade says, have you ever done anything on the Tao? I found those writings to be quite profound. Well, as a matter of fact, yes, Grenade, and you were in those lessons, so I guess you've forgotten it wasn't so very long ago, because that's what The Secret of the Golden Flower was all about, which I covered for about 5 or 6 weeks. So I think you should go back and take a look at those sessions that I did, and they are in the Monday night sessions, so they are in JRG3, the playlist called JRG3, and you'll find them there in reverse order because the most recent always go first. So, okay, you know, I know how you feel because I always forget things the very next day, and I have to go back and refresh my memory. So my point in doing this piece today, though, was to point out that Dr. Jung was pretty low when he was writing that letter in February of 1945, and he had just survived a heart attack, and he was at that point 70 years old, and he was writing a farewell letter to one of his most reliable disciples, I guess you'd call Kristine Mann, and so you could see really how low he was, and you can imagine how low he was. And I'll just put up this image once again to show sort of the essence of how he was feeling at that point. And yet he went on after that for another 16 years and wrote some of his most profound work after that. And so don't stop. No matter how bad things get, there is a morning after. And I thought about putting at the end of this video a link to the morning after from the Poseidon Adventure, but I decided that would be too schmaltzy, so I didn't do that. But anyway, well, the golden flower is related to the I Ching, and Richard Wilhelm, who brought the golden flower to Dr. Jung, was also bringing Taoism in general to Dr. Jung in the form of the I Ching, because it had not been translated into German at that time, and this was German. And so Dr. Jung is talking about Taoism in the golden flower. And I think there may be a foreword to the I Ching itself also in his collected works. And certainly there were two other books about Asian religion, including the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and which is a book from Buddhism, of course. And there's another one that was a foreword to Suzuki's book on Zen Buddhism, among several others. So volume 11 of Dr. Jung's collected works is Psychology and Religion, and you might want to look at that. So, okay. So I'm going to wrap it up. I hope that wasn't too much of a downer for everybody, but I thought it would be useful to point out that you can be pretty down. Things can be pretty rough, and things will get better. And, I've been pretty down myself at times, and I find that Dr. Jung's work is very helpful to me when I read it. And, if you don't know enough about it, a starting point is the book Mann and His Symbols, which Dr. Jung thought should be written at the end of his life. And so he wrote the first section of Mann and His Symbols. And one of the important things that he has in there is the significance of the individual. And so I would urge you to take a look at my reading of that. I guess I should see if I can. Let me see if I can find it quickly. If I can get the dashboard up, maybe I can. Because it's just a 1-minute reading from Mann and His Symbols, but it tells you why Dr. Jung thinks the individual and each of us going through our own pain and suffering can lead to where we need to be. So let me just find that link here. It was a very early reading that I did on that. Obviously, lots of Jungian psychology is about individuals, but this is... Okay, here it is. 1 minute and 14 seconds, so you can afford to spend the time to listen to this one. It's among the very last things that Dr. Jung wrote in his lifetime, and I'll put the link to it on the chat here. So, that should take you directly to it. And so thank you for stopping by, and I'll see you another time. I'm going to log off.